In the late 8th century, monks on a quiet island off the coast of England watched strange ships slide out of the mist. Long, narrow hulls, bright shields on the sides, and warriors in mail rushing ashore changed their world in a single morning. Similar ships soon appeared in Ireland, Francia, and even in the rivers of what is now Russia. The men in them came from cold, rocky lands in Scandinavia, where short summers and limited farmland pushed communities to look outward. Over the next 300 years, these Vikings raided monasteries, burned towns, traded in silver and slaves, and founded new kingdoms from the North Atlantic to the Mediterranean. They were feared as pirates, but also welcomed as merchants and settlers. How did a fringe world of farmers and fishermen become a force that reshaped so much of medieval Europe? This is the story of those Viking centuries. Around 700 CE, Scandinavia was a world of fjords, forests, and scattered farmsteads. Power lay with local chieftains who controlled small regions and competed for followers, land, and honor. People farmed barley and rye, kept cattle, pigs, and sheep, and relied heavily on the sea for fish and coastal trade. Contacts with the wider world already existed. Merchants brought glass, silk, and coins from the Frankish kingdoms and the Baltic coasts. But there were few large towns, no single king over Norway, Denmark, or Sweden, and limited good farmland for growing populations. Ships improved, ironworking advanced, and ambitious leaders looked beyond their own bays and valleys for wealth and reputation. The stage was set for younger sons, warriors, and adventurers to seek silver, slaves, and fame overseas. Soon, their longships would carry them far beyond the horizon. In 739 CE, raiders from the sea attacked the monastery of Lindisfarne on the coast of Northumbria. The island was a center of Christian learning, filled with books, relics, and treasures gifted by kings. They plundered it and killed or enslaved monks and carried off portable wealth. To Christian writers, this felt like a disaster sent by God, and they recorded the horror in vivid terms. For the Vikings, it was proof that small, wealthy coastal sites could be struck quickly and then left before larger forces arrived. Over the next decades, more raids hit monasteries and towns around the North Sea and Irish Sea. Chalices, reliquaries, and captives flowed back to Scandinavia. Local rulers struggled to guard long, exposed coastlines, and the word Viking became linked with sudden, brutal attacks from the sea. A new age of raiding had begun. The key to Viking reach was their ships. Longships were light, flexible vessels with overlapping planks, shallow keels, and both sails and oars. They could cross open seas, yet also move up rivers only a meter or so deep. Crews were organized in war bands under chieftains, bound by loyalty, shared loot, and honor. A single fleet could appear without warning, strike, and vanish along the coast or river system. The same technology also supported trade. Broader Nar cargo ships carried furs, walrus ivory, and slaves south and brought back silver, wine, and luxury goods. Ports like Ribe, Hedeby, and Birka grew into important hubs linking Scandinavia to the Carolingian Empire, the British Isles, and the Baltic. Warfare, piracy, and commerce all used the same sea roads. This mix of violence and trade defined the early Viking expansion. By the mid-9th century, raids on the British Isles had turned into something larger. Instead of seasonal hit-and-run attacks, large, great armies arrived, made up of many warbands under leaders like Halfdan and Guthrum. They overwintered in fortified camps, seized horses, and moved inland. In Ireland, Norse groups founded coastal strongholds such as Dublin which became centers of trade in slaves and silver. In England, much of the old Anglo-Saxon political map was broken. Northumbria and East Anglia fell, and large parts of central and eastern England became the Danelaw, ruled by Scandinavian elites under their own laws and customs. Only Wessex, under kings like Alfred the Great, managed to survive and slowly push back. The British Isles were no longer just victims of raids, they had become homes for new Viking-ruled societies. In the late 9th century, Alfred of Wessex faced repeated Viking attacks. He suffered defeats, retreated into marshes, and nearly lost his kingdom. But he reorganized his forces, built fortified towns called burhs, and created a system for rotating troops so fields could still be farmed. In 878, he won a crucial victory at Edington, forcing the Viking leader Guthrum to accept baptism and withdraw to the Danelaw. Over the next generations, Alfred's successors used diplomacy, warfare, and marriage alliances to unite much of England under one crown. At the same time, in Ireland, Norse and Irish communities mixed in towns like Dublin and Waterford. Kingdoms with Scandinavian roots, such as York under its Norse rulers, sat beside older Anglo-Saxon states. The Viking presence was now part of the political fabric of the British Isles, not just an external threat. Across the Channel, the Frankish kingdoms also struggled with Viking fleets. The Seine, Loire, and other rivers became highways for raiders. In 845, a force led by a chieftain later remembered as Ragnar sailed up the Seine and extracted tribute from Paris. Over time, Frankish rulers tried various responses, paying protection money, fighting back, and granting land. In 911, King Charles the Simple made a deal with a Viking leader named Rollo. In exchange for defending the lower Seine from other raiders and converting to Christianity, Rollo received territory that became known as Normandy, the land of the Northmen. His descendants blended with the local population, adopted the French language, and built a powerful duchy. From this base, Norman rulers would later launch their own conquests, including the invasion of England in 1066. A Viking warband had turned into a European principality. Viking exploration did not stop at Britain and Francia. From western Norway, sailors pushed into the open North Atlantic. Around 800, they settled the Faroe Islands. Soon after, ships reached Iceland, where a mix of Norwegian settlers and their families founded a new society with its own law assembly, the Althing. In the late 9th and 10th centuries, Eric the Red and others explored and settled Greenland's coasts, establishing farms and small churches in sheltered fjords. From these Greenland settlements, Leif Erikson and other voyagers crossed further west to a land they called Vinland, usually identified with parts of North America. Timber and resources drew them, but distance and conflict with local peoples made long-term settlement difficult. Still, within a few generations, Vikings had sailed farther across the Atlantic than any other medieval Europeans. The edges of their world had widened enormously. While one stream of Vikings moved west, another went east and south along the rivers of what is now Russia and Ukraine. These Scandinavians, often called Varangians, followed routes from the Baltic Sea down the Dnieper and Volga rivers to the Black Sea and the Caspian. They traded furs, wax, and slaves for silver, silk, and spices from the Byzantine Empire and the Islamic world. In the mid-9th century, leaders such as Rurik and his successors established control over key towns like Novgorod and Kiev. Over time, this Varangian elite merged with Slavic populations to form the Kievan Rus. Some warriors hired themselves out directly to the Byzantine emperor as the Varangian Guard, an elite bodyguard famous for its loyalty and fierce axes. In the East, as in the West, Viking energy created new political and economic networks that outlasted their original raiding bands. Early Viking society followed its own pagan beliefs. People honored gods such as Odin, Thor, and Freya, held feasts at sacred sites, and buried the powerful with weapons, ships, and grave goods. Mythic stories spoke of Valhalla, fate, and a final battle at Ragnarok. As Vikings settled in Christian lands and traded with Christian states, missionaries and local rulers began to push for conversion. In Denmark, kings like Harald Bluetooth adopted Christianity in the 10th century, using it to strengthen royal authority and link their courts to wider European diplomacy. Similar processes unfolded in Norway and Sweden, though often with resistance and local conflicts. Churches replaced some old temples, and stone crosses appeared where wooden idols once stood. Could a culture built around warrior honor and pagan rituals fully accept this new faith? Over time, Christianity helped pull Scandinavia into Latin Christendom, but older traditions lingered in stories and customs. By the late 10th and 11th centuries, stronger kingdoms emerged within Scandinavia itself. In Denmark, kings like Sweyn Forkbeard and his son Knut built fleets large enough to conquer England and rule a North Sea empire for a brief period. Norway saw the rise of kings such as Olaf Tryggvason and Olaf Haraldsson, who fought rivals, promoted Christianity, and tried to centralize rule. In Sweden, rulers expanded influence eastward around the Baltic. As these monarchies gained power, they sought to control violence, collect taxes, and regulate trade. Large independent raiding fleets became harder to organize without royal support. At the same time, coastal defenses improved, and European states learned to respond faster to attacks. By the mid-11th century, the pattern of sudden Viking raids around Western Europe had largely ended. Scandinavian warriors still traveled, but now more often as mercenaries, traders, or crusaders under Christian kings. Even as the political shape of Scandinavia changed, memories of the Viking centuries remained powerful. In Iceland and other Norse communities, storytellers preserved tales of voyages, feuds, and heroes in long narrative poems and sagas. These works, written down mainly in the 13th century, look back on an age when honor, family loyalty, and bold action defined a person's name. Some sagas praised cunning and negotiation as much as pure violence, reflecting a complex society with law, assemblies, and rich cultural life. Outside Scandinavia, chroniclers in England, France, and the church world remembered Vikings mostly as brutal raiders and destroyers. Both views captured parts of the truth. The warrior, the trader, and the settler all shared the same sea routes and ships. Later generations would reshape these stories again, turning Vikings into symbols of both barbarism and adventure. Over 3 centuries, the Viking world moved from scattered coastal farms and small chiefdoms to a network of kingdoms, trading towns, and overseas settlements stretching from North America to the Black Sea. Raiding and piracy opened the story, but settlement, trade, and state building reshaped it. The same longships that struck Lindisfarne also carried merchants to Byzantium and settlers to Iceland and Normandy. The big question, how a marginal northern fringe could shake Europe, has a simple answer: ships, flexible leadership, and a constant search for opportunity. The results are still visible today. Modern England, Normandy, and parts of Ireland carry place names and family lines that trace back to Viking settlers. Russia's early state story includes Varangian rulers. Iceland's literature preserves Norse saga culture. Scandinavian countries stand as Christian monarchies born from this era of change. That is why maps, languages, and even ideas of law and kingship in Northern Europe look the way they do. If you enjoyed seeing centuries of history condensed into a short story, Don't forget to like and subscribe for more journeys through the past. Tell me in the comments which civilization or period you want to see in our next video.